She's a doctor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dovec, and she's a dietitian.
Hey, I'm Hannah Schuyler, and together we are the Weight Loss Collab.
And we have our favorite guest on the show today. We are talking all things with bariatric therapist, world-renowned Lora Grabow, who is here from Michigan. She is going to be talking all things emotions, mindset. We're going in deep today, as per usual. So, Laura, thank you for being on our podcast again.
It is great to be back and great to see you, Hannah and Dr. Dovec. I'm excited for this opportunity.
Well, thank you. So we're going to go right in, and we're going to talk a lot today about emotional eating. And I think a lot of us think we know what that is. We have an idea of how it may show up in our own lives, but how do you define emotional eating?
Right. I'm so glad we're jumping right in. And I'll have to say before I start, before I define, it's probably the topic I talk about the most because it's that much of a topic for all of us. I think it's important to know that all of us emotionally eat, not just our patients who are suffering from the disease of obesity. We are all emotional eaters. And I'd always be very weary if someone is saying, you can eliminate your emotional eating forever. Wow. That's not my goal. My goal is to help our patients decrease the power of emotional eating in their life. And so how would I define emotional eating? What do we want to decrease? It's eating for all of the reasons other than physical hunger. So anytime we eat and it's not triggered by physical hunger, it is emotional eating.
It's so funny because I'm having like a flashback to recording an episode of the podcast, like maybe 2 years to 3 years ago. I don't even know. I couldn't tell you the episode or anything, where Dr. Dovec and I were like talking about this. And then all of a sudden we were like, oh, we do that. Oh, we both do, like, we both came to that real, because we're like, no, we're pretty, I don't think we really struggle with that. And then as we're talking through it, it's like, oh, wait, no. Yeah, we do that for sure.
Absolutely. And, I think what people think about when they think about emotional eating, they certainly think about drowning your sorrows in chocolate chip cookies, right? So eating to soothe is emotional eating. Eating to celebrate is emotional eating. That's actually, when they do the research, the number one feeling we eat for is joy and happiness. We like to keep the good feeling going, and we do that well with food. Mm-hmm. And it's estimated that 75% of our overeating is triggered by our emotions. Like, they've done the research. 75% of our overeating is triggered by emotions. But I think it's important because, Hannah, you raised a good point, that there's some things that people think, well, no, I didn't think that was emotional eating. So sometimes, I have a lot of experience. I don't do as many anymore doing those pre-op psych evals. And I would ask patients, are you an emotional eater? And sometimes, no. And I'd say, okay, well, do you ever eat when you're bored? Yes. Right. So that falls under emotional eating. They're like, well, I don't really emotionally eat. I just eat, like by the clock, I just eat when the time tells me. And so I hear that's habit eating. Habit eating is emotional eating because our habits make us feel comfortable. And then this one, I always am like, okay, is this really emotional eating? And I actually learned it when I was able to be trained under Dr. Beck from the Beck Weight Management Institute in Philadelphia. She's the CBT guru. She taught me that eating out of desire falls under emotional eating. And so what does that look like?
Yeah.
That is, I'm not really hungry, but I eat because it's there. Right? So it's not tied to emotion, but you walk by your colleague's desk and they have a bowl of M&Ms and you grab a few, right? Not particularly hungry, but you eat because it's there. When I used to make brownies, when my kids were living at home, and I wasn't hungry, but there was the 9x13 pan sitting on the counter. I'll just take a little bit. So that's eating by desire. It's not really like I'm sad I want to eat, I'm bored I want to eat. It's just, well, I'm just eating because I'm there. Well, if we go back to my original definition, any time we're eating and we're not physically hungry, it's emotional eating.
I think the boredom resonates with me sometimes. I think maybe this is on the same lines of that. If I'm working really hard, especially if I'm like just doing something that's challenging, I'm sitting there, I'm like stiff and I need a break, instead of just standing up, stretching, taking a walk, I'll be like, I'm gonna go eat pistachios. Like I have to take a break. And that's almost like your reward. You've been such a good girl. You've been sitting here and you've been putting in the time. Like, all right, go walk over there and grab you some nuts. Like, okay.
Absolutely. I was just going to ask you that. It's probably connected to I deserve a break. Like I deserve a reward. I deserve, this has just been hard. I need something to soothe. And those are all healthy needs. They became unhealthy when we connected it with food.
Yeah. So true. I feel like we all go there. So we all overeat, or we all emotionally eat rather. And it's interesting. I never really thought about it as like habit eating, just eating for convenience. You definitely know that we eat for it when it's there. And so how do you like when on that one, when you're talking about the sheet of brownies, and of course, celebration, whatever it is, we have them in the house. How do you kind of bring it back to prevent that type of emotional eating when you're at the store? Like, how do you get in the mindset there where you're like, where you think you're going to have control? You're like, I'm going to buy all these carrots and all these things that you're going to trash whenever they, expire. But yet I'm also just going to throw in a little bit of this, but I'm going to have control this time when I never have had that in the past.
So now you are jumping into another passion I have, another mindset skill, because you said we talk about everything mindset. I call that stinking thinking, and there's actually a category for it. It's called overly positive fortune telling.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard you say this.
Yeah, so it's looking into the future. You're predicting the future too positively when there's other evidence that tells it's true. So exactly what you said. When I teach about this in our amazing Project Reset program, I always talk about Pringles. Like Pringles are a trigger food for me. And I hope we get into today why food is so soothing and why comfort food is full of sugar, fat, and salt. But I will look at those Pringles. Okay, so the trigger is Pringles, and the thought is exactly what you said. I can bring those in the house. I'll be able to count out 11 crisps and just stick to them, or whatever the serving size is. That's not true, right? So what I teach is these CBT skills to respond to that thought. I'll be able to this overly positive fortune telling, or I'm not going to touch those. Those are just for my kids or my grandkids. I teach our patients to respond with the thought, how has that worked for you before? Or will this get me to my goal? And asking that question in a very non-judgmental, non-shaming way. Well, I know I never stick to the Pringles, right? So serving size. So I just keep on walking. Right? Because I have a lot of evidence, right? So I do some overly positive fortune telling. My brain can bring some evidence back, like, yeah, Laura, that never really happens. And you know what? There's some powerful chemicals. Like that Pringle is crafted to reach your bliss point and to get you hooked. So just don't bring it in. So I don't bring it in.
Yeah. Overly positive thinking, that makes me think of you and getting places on time, Dr. Biswas.
Ooh, I'm a time optimist.
She is a time optimist. She's like, we can do all of that. But
sure. You are? Not like me. Remember that reel that was out? Some of you might have seen. I put this out there where it was like, if you can meet yourself the previous 15 years ago for coffee, what would you tell them? I'd be like, I'm even later than I was then. Like everyone else is like, but she showed up 5 minutes late. I showed up 10 minutes early. No, wrong. Totally reverse and made that like an hour late. Like it's horrible. Like, anyway, yes. Overly positive fortune telling. You ain't going to be there on time. So Yeah. I gotta put that into my thoughts here on as well.
Gives you catch, check, and change.
I do.
I talk about that with people a lot, Laura. I always credit you, which catch it, check it, change it. But I think that's such another like we said, like Laura-ism of, and I think it really does. It ties into the emotional eating thing a lot for sure.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, dive deeper into that. So catch it, check it, change it. So give me a standard a scenario where you feel like you can really put that into motion.
Right. I think with the emotional eating, right? So, well, first of all, catch it, check it, change it is the 3 C's of cognitive behavioral therapy, right? So this is how I explain CBT. We catch the thought, we check it. Is it a true thought? By the way, not everything we think is true, and our brains are not our besties. And we change it, right? So if it's stinking thinking, we're going to reframe it. We're going to change the thought. So, it could be the donuts in the break room, right? So there's your trigger. Donuts in the break room. Thought. Those look good. I'm having a rough day. I'm just going to have one. Right? So if that is your thought, what is your behavior going to be? You're going to eat the donut, right? And how fast does that happen? Like nanoseconds, right? Like patients tell me all the time, they're like, I don't think I have a thought before I eat. And I always say it's not their fault that they don't know that. It's because they haven't been taught that, right? We've only been teaching movement or nutrition. We haven't been teaching mindset skills. But so we have to slow down and say, okay, what thought am I having? And when the thought is, I deserve it, I'm having a bad day, I would hopefully, if I was working with someone one-on-one or groups and Project Reset, teach them how to talk back to that thought. I do deserve to unwind. I do deserve to release stress, but my feelings are worth much more than this chocolate cake or the French fries. And what's another way to take care of that? So there's some catch, check, and change.
So, you have a plan, you want to stick to it. A lot of what you say, I love your thoughts over like just make a decision. Decision fatigue is also just kind of in this like mental struggle. It's just emotionally exhausting. Like, do I eat the donut? Do I not eat the donut? I deserve the donut. I'm having a bad day. Like all this kind of like back and forth and that sort of thing. And, I know a lot of people after they emotionally eat to hopefully feel better, to take, to reverse this bad day that they're having, they will then feel like they ate too much. Do you ever feel like there is like a quantity that's attached with the kind of aftermath of emotions that kind of come with it? Like, oh, I had a whole bag of cookies, but I actually did only eat one and that's okay. Or, hey, that wasn't on my plan. So should I still kind of feel like, shouldn't have done that? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, is there like a quantifying of how the response afterwards should be?
So I could go 2 directions with answering that question. So the first one is, being doing this work now for over 2 decades, I will often have patients say things like, well, at least I was emotionally eating protein bars and not the ice cream.
Right.
And okay, we can give that to you. But what I've learned from our patients is what we're trying to teach, or what I'm trying to teach, and I think our whole team is trying to teach, they have difficulty sticking to a plan, right? So whether you're going off the plan with protein bars or French fries, we got to figure out why you're going off the plan, because we're trying to teach you planned eating and eating only when you're physically hungry, right? So that's one way to go with it. The other way is, how do you show up to yourself after you emotionally eat? Because, backing up a little bit, emotional eating works, right? It does soothe, because what kind of food do we eat when we emotionally eat? You mentioned the pistachios. I mentioned the Pringles. Hannah,
Oh,
food.
so many things.
Yeah.
I'm pregnant though, so it's another thing at this moment.
But when we've learned from our patients through the years, it's these highly palatable, ultra processed food full of sugar, fat, and salt. The reason being, the food industry figured this out before us in the health industry, that sugar, fat, and salt gives you a nice release of dopamine, right? And once you eat it, so these are our patients, you say, okay, you're asking like, well, I only had 2 Oreos. Your brain starts chasing dopamine. It's like, I need more. I need more to keep that dopamine going. Because they've also done the studies that the dopamine we get, the soothing effect we get from our comfort food is only 3 minutes max. But what our patients tell us, they're like, I often don't get 3 minutes. Like I am beating myself up like as soon as I'm done eating it.
Mhm.
And so this is back to Dr. Dovec's question of, does it matter how you show up to yourself? Absolutely. Because what happens is you start beating yourself up. I can't believe I'm doing this. I've had surgery. I'm on a GLP-1. Look at me. I'm emotionally eating. I'm just so awful. And the shame just starts. That only triggers more emotional eating because so many of our patients are really uncomfortable feeling big feelings. And if you're having a big feeling like shame, you're just going to go to food to soothe. And it's this vicious cycle. It's round and round and round, or I'll call it a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I talk to patients about it, a lot of times I say, I think, and people do this with exercise as well. But they have such black and white thinking about it too. And like we live in such a gray world. Like there is no black and white. Like everything is somewhere in the middle. And so it's kind of coming to that point of like, I tell people, I'm like, this is gonna happen. Like it's inevitable. This is
Right.
going to happen to you, but you can't let it derail you, right? Like you can't say, well, it's kind of the whole thing. I've already been bad today, bad in quotes, like now the rest of my day, the rest of my week, the rest of my month, I've ruined this journey, like whatever it is. And again, like I said, people do this with the gym too, where they're like, I go 4 or 5 times a week and I missed one day. So now I don't go to the gym anymore, and it just stops. And it's like, well, you missed one day, or okay, you had the donut in the break room, like take that and let's like move on from it, basically, kind of thing, and just let it be what it was, and then let's get back on the plan. But like you said, it can be really challenging just for people to stay on a plan is once that has, one thing has gone off the tracks.
If I ever did research as probably like the most popular and the most damaging sabotaging thought or example of stinking thinking, it's I've already blown it. I might as well blow it big.
Yeah.
I've already blown it. I might as well blow it big. And that touches, Hannah, right on what you said, black or white thinking. Again, I mentioned overly positive fortune telling. Another category of sabotaging thoughts is all or nothing thinking, right? There is a middle ground in teaching our patients to do that. So,
well, and so much of, I mean, like you said, I mean, it's the food industry, like, and I'm not somebody who sits here and blasts the food industry all the time, but it's food scientists are really good at their jobs, like I studied food science in college and it's very interesting, but part of their goals is to sell product. And that's, so yeah, they make it highly palatable and it's saltier, it's tastier. It provides that like dopamine hit. And so that's done really well. And then also you just see so much absolutism in social media and in the conversation, like nuance is just not there. And I think that makes it really challenging for people too, is they're like blasted with this content constantly of like, good or bad.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes. And, they've done PET scans on patients who have the disease of obesity compared to patients who do not. And patients who do not have an obesity get a light up. I often say, like a Christmas tree, we get a dopamine light up. But patients with obesity not only get a Christmas tree, they get Clark Griswold's house from Christmas Vacation. Like more of a light up, like woo, woo, more of a party. And then the question is, does bariatric surgery change this brain response? And the answer is no. Do GLP-1s change the brain response? Okay, we're looking at it, dopamine, maybe not finding as much pleasure, but I'm learning that our patients on GLP-1s are still emotionally eating. So,
Well, something interesting as you said earlier too about emotional eating is like that eating when you're not hungry. And I think that that's another struggle point for our patients because oftentimes, especially early on, like post-op or when they are on a, higher dose of the GLP or just getting started, whatever it is, starting on meds, their hunger is so suppressed. And so even myself as a practitioner, I'm like, you still have to eat. Like we got to get nutrients in and skipping meals and missing. So it's kind of, again, it's finding that like middle ground and all of that of like, what's more appropriate and what do we need to do versus when is it,
right.
detrimental to you.
Because it could be our newer patients could be like, wait, you just told me not to eat if I wasn't physically hungry.
Right.
But there's our patients, our surgery patients in the first year, do have that physical hunger suppressed and they do have to eat by the clock, right?
Yeah.
But interesting, I don't know if you two have heard this, but many of my patients, our brand new patients, especially surgery patients, will say, I didn't realize how much of an emotional eater I was until I had the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm learning there's no way I can be physically hungry right now. And Dr. Dovec, you could probably explain the anatomy and the metabolic reasons for that and what's going on with ghrelin hormone. But that refrigerator is calling my name.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was working, when I was working with a newer patient, they're like, I really wanted to join in the eating when all of my friends were going out because that's just what we did. But I knew I wasn't physically hungry. So that had to be emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually makes them more aware of their emotional eating habits.
Yeah, and then even on the topic of legitimate hunger, after surgery, they will feel hungry. I feel hungry. We get this message all the time. Am I doing something wrong? No, you're hungry. You are legitimately hungry and you need to eat more. Your body is asking for fuel. You need to fuel it. You need to get the protein. That's why we have all these dietary recommendations and you have to do that. And, and that's a huge change to, again, reminding yourself to eat, making sure you eat, this habit eating, and then how do you kind of keep evolving with it as your hunger cues kind of change. You can eat a little bit more. You get used to your post-op anatomy. The honeymoon period is over, and so on and so forth. I think it's a never-ending journey, as we are well aware.
Yeah.
And with that being said, you talk a lot, just backing it up to the idea of, wow, we're comparing someone who has obesity who doesn't. And if I was listening to this and I have, I'm suffering with this chronic disease and I'm seeing like, oh, my brain is already lighting up all of that, even, whether surgery's in there or meds are in there or not. So like, how can you, and I know this is what you've dedicated your life to, but how can you work with emotional eating knowing that you're already so far behind the eight ball than everybody else? Like, how do you adjust that so that you could effectively remain away from doing that sort of activity?
Right. So, gosh, we could just the rest of the podcast to be on that. I think that first of all, when you're talking about physical hunger and fuel, that is how I teach the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. And I think this is true for both surgical patients and GLP-1 patients. And again, you could explain the science behind it. But when our patients are physically hungry, we want them to put food in. And when you put food in, the appropriate food, protein forward, you will feel satisfied. I often say, I know some people are listening, but I'm putting my hand up like we have this tank. I think of a gas tank. When we're physically hungry and you put the appropriate fuel in, you're satisfied, right? Let's talk about emotional hunger. When you're emotionally hungry, or some people say when I have head hunger, so back to this tank, and you put the food in, the hunger persists despite eating. And so I hear from our patients, well, first I ate something salty and that didn't do it for me. And then I ate something sweet and that did do it for me. So then I put them together because I thought I needed like sweet and savory together, and that still didn't do it for me.
Mm.
I want to focus on the still didn't do it for you. It's because you weren't physically hungry. If there's anything our tools to treat obesity is giving our patients, GLP-1 and bariatric surgery, is often our patients are feeling physical satiety for the first time, right? They're physically hungry, they put the food in, they're satisfied. Emotionally hungry, you put the food in, your hunger persists. Or you could have just eaten a very balanced macro plate that Hannah, balanced macros that Hannah teaches, right? Protein forward, has all the fiber, fat, all the things, carb. And you have this thought like, oh, I have a taste for something sweet.
Mm-hmm.
That looks good. That sounds good. Well, if you're hearing thoughts like that, that's another cue, if you will, that that's emotional hunger. So I guess the first thing I would, I'm saying to patients who say, well, first I say, it's not your fault once you start eating Oreos, you can't stop. Back to what Hannah said, there are brilliant food scientists that got paid a lot of money to craft that product to reach your bliss point and to have you go back for more. So that part lifts shame. Then we work on teaching them what's the difference between physical and emotional hunger. And then once they identify emotional hunger, we're going to take them to then what do you really need in that moment? Like just the power of the pause, right? Like slowing down and saying, am I really physically hungry? And if you're not, like you said, I've built my career on, well, what else do you do then? Because your feelings are worth more than a French fry.
And so
Power of the pause. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of those? Because again, I talk with people about this and I'm like, sometimes it's also, and I get this with people too, it's just habit eating, like you mentioned earlier. And I'm like, you just need something else to do with your hands. Sometimes you want I call it like a second activity. You're watching TV. And so normally you eat when you watch TV, but it's really just that you want something tactile. I'm that way too. I like to have something in my hands just to do something. But like, yeah, so what are some of those strategies though that you teach people?
Well, again, I've learned the most from our patients, and I think us therapists have told our patients too many times, well, just feel your feelings. Like, just feel your feelings without food. And then they come back and they're like, I don't know how to do that. What do you mean, just feel my feelings? And so then I would give them a journal and I'd say, well, write about them. And then they would come back to group or individual with blank pages. They're like, I got nothing.
Journaling stresses me out. So like that, and I tell patients that too. I'm like, it would not work for me because it's so super stressful for me to try to write things down.
Yeah. And so then with you, you'd know that and we'd work on some other things. But again, back to being able to identify emotional eating, you have to be able to identify the emotion. And what I've learned from my patients and even us, we don't have the best feeling vocabulary. We maybe know happy, sad, mad. Happy, sad, mad. There are so many other feelings out there. And so a tool I recommend, and I don't know if I've ever shared this with you guys before, but it's a really awesome app called the How We Feel app. How We Feel. How We Feel. I think Yale put it together. And I have so many of my group patients using it, individual patients, like before you can even honor your food, honor your feeling in a non-food way, you got to be able to name it. And the How We Feel app gives you so many names of emotions, right? For example, I had a client who was using it a while and she said, you know what, I feel really disheartened today. I'm like, okay, that's a lot different than sad, right? So they start naming the feelings. And I love there's categories in the How We Feel app of like pleasant emotions and unpleasant emotions. That's important too. I stay away from positive and negative or good and bad because there's not a bad feeling. I mean, that would we'd want to resist it. Well, there's comfortable and uncomfortable. There's pleasant and unpleasant. So I'd start by, well, recently, I had a patient use the How We Feel app when they were eating, especially when they were eating off plan. And she realized she was an angry eater, a resentful eater. She was pissed off about a lot of things, right? So then, okay, what am I really hungering after? Well, one of the ways she can deal with her anger is talking about it in her session with me. right? So once you name the feeling, or getting out for that walk, that stress management walk. So pause, name the feeling, and then become curious. Okay, I'm feeling anxious right now. What do I need? Feeling lonely right now. What do I need? I'm feeling sad right now. What do I need? And there's a couple different things I suggest you can do. You mentioned get busy with your hands, Hannah, and I call that would fall under soothing with distraction. Okay, using distraction. And someone like, wait a minute, you just told me you don't want me to distract with food. No, I don't want you to distract with food, but you're having some big feelings. So I would love if you could use the power of your mind and put it to something more neutral. And that's where I have a little object lesson for all of you. And if you're in Project Reset, this is my emotional eating emergency box.
Oh, wow.
Gosh. If you're listening only, it's a very cute box covered in
Yes.
filled with things.
And filled with things. And some things I have in here, and I know Hannah and Dr. Dovec, you haven't seen this, but
Oh,
you know what this is? Can you see?
Oh, coloring book?
Yeah, coloring book, right? And some
Okay.
colored pencils, very soothing, right? I don't know why we stopped coloring when we became adults. It's also, you get to see the task go from beginning to end, which is also very soothing. You get to have control over picking out the picture and how you want to do it. So coloring. You mentioned busy with your hands. Do you know what these are, Hannah?
Is it knitting needles?
Yeah. So knitting needles would trigger me to emotionally eat.
Yeah.
This is where I talk about, how we distract and what's in our box is very individualized, right? But knitting, crocheting, sewing, what we also know about these activities is they're crossing the midline. So every time we cross the midline of our brain, it's soothing. So oftentimes I will teach people, it's like a butterfly hug, right? Just tapping like this. I can do this a little bit, right? Just tapping bilateral. And if you don't want anyone to see you do it, you can do it, like this. You can do it on your legs. So tapping. What else do I have in here? Ooh, sorry about that. So excited about my box. I dropped the computer. A candle, right? Candles are very soothing, but non-food. It's hard. There are so many food smelling candles.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. What's your favorite kind of scent?
Lavender is very soothing.
I always like the ones that are like, it's like, how is that a smell? Like the beach or like soft, like salt air.
Yeah. Ocean breeze or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Or clean cotton. That's actually the best Yankee candle is clean
Right.
cotton.
But we don't want to put on grandma's sugar cookie when we're struggling with emotion.
No, we do not.
No.
I think you've probably talked about these a lot. What do you see here?
Oh, chewing gum, brushing your teeth. Yeah.
Because we don't want to eat after we have that clean in our mouth. A couple other things I have in here. Let's see. This is just a journal. So again, writing, maybe naming some feelings, write it out. Nail polish. This is the old way people used to play games, right? Like, but our phones can be soothing if we're like, don't go on the news apps, right? Maybe there's a game that you really like. Like I like the game Wordscapes. Meditation. This is the old way to meditate. I actually have a client who still uses, she gave me this cover, like old school CDs, but so many great meditation apps now, like Calm, Headspace, YouTube. Tea, right? Just have a hot, no calorie beverage can really be soothing. And again, something in your hands. And so I have patients create this box. Oh, I have a bookmark in here because I like to read to soothe. And so when I'm teaching about emotional eating, such as in our wonderful Project Reset program, I have them create their emotional eating emergency box. And we call it that because oftentimes emotional eating feels like an emergency.
Mhm.
Right? And I want you to have it ready because our emotional eating urges are strong. Like we talked about the brain stuff, but then there's also a lot like, I don't like feeling this big feeling. I got to get rid of it. So you don't want to wait until you're in an emotional eating urge to go put your box together. That's kind of like,
Yeah.
that's kind of like waiting to learn to swim when you're drowning, right? You don't want that. So you want this ready to go. And I've had so many patients say it just has helped me, especially in the evening, to like do things with my hands. And so that's like soothing through distraction. So that's one thing, one way to curb emotional eating. Another thing I often talk a lot about is using mindfulness skills. So that's deep breathing, meditation.
What about screaming into the void? I tell people that one.
Screaming into the void.
Yeah. So you just got to get it out.
Just got to get it out. Loud music. I often say I'm a walker, and if Jim and I, my husband, had just gotten in a fight, I'm going to be walking a lot faster, right? Using movement. Yeah, soothing yourself with social relationships, connection. We see that happen every Monday in Project Reset. Our patients are really connecting and building relationship together. And I know by coming to a group, it's decreasing their likelihood of emotional eating because they showed up to a group where they felt heard, seen, validated, and not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are some of the ways.
Wow. No, I love that. And, we talk a lot about emotional eating. And you said something before we got on that was such a really profound observation in this new kind of GLP-1 era with everyone talking about its association with diminishing food noise. So tell me, how does food noise going away with meds or even after surgery, how does that change the landscape in relationship to emotional eating?
Right. So what I've learned, because I've been really curious and I've been working with patients on GLP-1, is that food noise and emotional eating are very different. And yes, GLP-1s are decreasing food noise, but it doesn't change your emotional eating habits. So the way my patients describe food noise to me and what we know about food noise as obesity medicine providers is they're always thinking about food, right? Like, get up, what am I going to have for breakfast? What's going to be my snack? What's going to be my lunch? What am I having for dinner? What's going to be my nighttime snack? That's not emotional eating, as we've just discussed, right? That GLP-1 is taking that away. We're excited about that. But I actually had a good friend this week who's on a GLP-1, and she's like, Lora, I was stressed the other day and there I was snacking.
Mm.
And I'm like, yup, that's because GLP-1s do not take away emotional eating. Eating because we're bored, eating because we're sad, eating because we're happy, eating because we're mad, lonely, anxious. You still got to do your work on your emotional hunger. But the good news is I believe, just like I've always said with bariatric surgery, with stabilizing those hormones that are kind of out of whack with our patients with the disease of obesity, it gives you more mind space to then work on the mindset stuff, to work on catch, check, and change, to work on emotional eating strategies.
Yeah. No, I love that space. And that is such, again, an interesting observation that food noise is very different than emotional eating. And I have never really thought about that. My husband's on a GLP-1 and he has been for years. And I can tell you, for being with him for almost 2 decades, that when he went on a GLP-1, yes, the physical amount of food that he could eat was very different. Him, the weight loss was easy in a way that it had never been for him in his life, especially since we were together. And so he's eating less, he's done with meals, he's making healthier choices. And then we're building the surgery center, for example, and he's super stressed and he's eating ice cream. And I'm like, why are you eating ice cream? You just couldn't even finish your dinner. Like, so that is making a lot of sense about it. Like, he's still just wanting to get something, like you said, to be so comfortable in that moment of tough times.
By the way, ice cream, they've done the research, number one food we emotionally eat, women and men, is ice cream. But then this is so interesting. It's different by gender. So when they've done the research, so number one, ice cream, both genders, the food we emotionally eat. And then they look at men, and men will say things more like casseroles, meat and potatoes, soups, right? Big meals. And females are more cookies, chips, snack packs, Little Debbie. You guys want to guess why?
Because women are trying to keep their portions. They've always been told to keep their portions smaller, so they're eating smaller things to make themselves feel better.
Men associate their emotional eating with being taken care of by their moms, by their wife. They like that meal, right? And women want a break. They're sick of being the caretakers. So they're going to go for something quick and easy, something I can grab and go. So
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I was like, I would never think of like, I mean, not that I don't, because like pasta is like my go-to comfort like meal, but I would categorize it differently in my mind of like a meal versus
Right.
I'm gonna run like the brownie thing that she talked about earlier. That's so like classic. My childhood growing up was like, yeah, we'd make brownies every so often. It's like now if I make them, it's like, ooh, you know, the 1 inch of brownie.
a little bit here, a little bit.
You just keep walking and going back and forth to the kitchen again and again. As soon as you get that first taste, you just like forget about it. It's done. I just want more. But like that's interesting about the ice cream thing. And I think you're talking about that's so my childhood. That's so quintessential that what we did, we would just have that. Don't do grandma's sugar cookie. Like ice cream is the number one food. Is that because? Like, when does this start? When does this emotional eating, this pattern start? I guess when we're little kids. And why is that? Like, why are we putting this cycle to the next generation? How do we stop generational emotional eating?
Yeah, it's a yes.
Well, solve this for us. The world's hunger, world's obesity epidemic is going to be solved by this answer.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be great? I have to go back to what I said earlier is that, you know, the reason we emotionally eat is because it works, right? And food is soothing. And one of the reasons it's soothing is often it's connected with positive childhood memories, right? We're hungry for nostalgia. We see that a lot in the holidays. Like, this is the only time I get this recipe. Many of us were conditioned to soothe with food from a young age, right? You fell off your bike. What did you get? A cookie. You probably needed, you know, clean the wound out, a Band-Aid, and a hug, but you got a cookie. Years ago, because my niece is now 16, but I was shopping for my sister's baby shower, and that's when I discovered I was working in obesity medicine because I've been doing this a long time. They're making, and maybe Hannah, you know this because you're more into the little ones, flavored pacifiers.
Oh, I have not seen that.
I have not seen that either.
Okay, so what do you think they're flavored like?
Sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we training?
Well, yeah, and it's a natural, we're predisposed to want sweet things. Like that's a biological thing as well. But
Yes.
my God, we don't need any more help keeping that pacifier in that baby's mouth.
Right? Right? And I'm even thinking like, you know, the sugar water, like I remember my daughter had to have some type of test and she, you know, so you're right. It starts young because I also think back to like Hannah, you're right. Like there's biology.
Mm-hmm.
I also think back to when my girls were newborns and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, especially the first one. Like, okay, I fed her. She's been changed. Like everything's okay. She's still crying. She must be hungry. Yeah, I'm going to feed her. And what did she do? She puked it up, right? I feel like at newborns is the only time they stop eating when they're physically full. She didn't want it anymore.
Well, there is a lot, and feeding kids is such an interesting thing. And I am in the thick of a 2-year-old. She just some days she eats, and some days she lives off of the one Cheerio she found on the rug, and a sip of water. I'm like, okay, well, you're surviving. But it's like kids and things have a built-in like stop feature, which is why a lot of times too it's like I see her not eat for a meal or whatever and I'm like, it's fine. It means she's not hungry because she still has that inborn in her and I think that the problem is that we come at it from it as adults and say, well, no, you need to be eating. You should be eating a meal. And some of it's cultural and some of it's age. We see this with grandparents a lot of times too, of like, no, they have to be fed, or no, I'll just give them something that they want, I know that they're going to eat. And it's like, it's really okay. Like, she's growing and developing. This is all very normal. And I think that that's where it is. It's kind of like, how do we break that intergenerational thing? It's just education and awareness and learning that people do. We are born with that nature to stop eating when we're full, and eventually we condition ourselves out of that. And sometimes it's a biological thing too. It is like we don't get that fullness cue. Our hormones do get crazy and we have this disease and things like that. But for a lot of people, it's just kind of conditioned out of like, oh no, I'm gonna eat. I'm just gonna keep eating because I feel like I can or I should.
And look at the names of some of our candy bars, right? Symphony, Dove, Bliss, right? We're coming up to Valentine's Day. It's not named root canal for a reason.
I also wonder if ice cream is different because it melts, and so it's like a liquid, and it's really sweet and fatty.
Yeah, and the sugar, fat, and salt. I mean, this is why we've seen the rise of the salted caramel. Right? Or, bacon as an ice cream topping, because they know to reach your bliss point, sugar, fat, salt, put it all together. So,
really cool.
But yeah,
I love ice cream.
I was gonna say, well, that does sound good. Oh shoot, I shouldn't say that out loud.
One thing I forgot to say that I have in my emotional eating box, and because she also goes into why food is so soothing, is this book. And it fits in my box because it's little. And those that are listening, it's called 50 Ways to Soothe Yourself Without Food by Dr. Susan Albers. She's a psychologist out of the Cleveland Clinic. And she actually wrote another book called 50 More Ways to Soothe Yourself Without Food. So I always say to our patients, I hate to break it to you, there are 100 ways to soothe without food.
At least.
Man. What I like about this book is, well, actually, she has one. You were talking about all or nothing thinking. It's not like something you have to read from beginning to end. You just, I'm going to do this self-soothing technique, exiting zebra thinking. Zebra thinking is black and white thinking. So she kind of like walks you through, investigate stress eating, and then she gives you prompts of like what to journal if you don't know how. So I'm often recommending this book. And one other thing I think is really important to say that I probably should have said in the beginning, when any of us emotionally eat, we're looking to numb. We're looking to escape. I want to escape. I want to numb, right? The techniques that I teach in Project Reset, that I do in my individual therapy practice, they're techniques to help you cope through. How do I cope through this uncomfortable emotion? It's easier to numb. It's easier to escape. But we know the positive feeling fades. So let's learn how to cope through the emotion versus, well, I had one patient say she tranquilizes her emotions with food. A powerful word. Right? Yeah. And so they'll say, well, that box thing or that, that deep breathing, it didn't give me what pizza gave me. And I'll say, you're right, because pizza's about numbing and I'm teaching you how to cope through. It's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
Wow.
So much.
There is so many things, but of course we want to keep hearing you. Our favorite, gosh, you've been on the podcast before. You've been in other support groups. I hope you'll come to a support group again very soon. We do this once a month. We love it when you are kind of the featured special guest. And then our work that you did in September, we did the Body by Mindset retreat, which was all about the very, very specific aspect of mindset, breaking free from shame. And I swear to God, I just saw a patient today who told me that she was at that retreat. She, again, gosh, we're many, many months from there, almost a half a year later. She talks about how powerful it was. And she talked about burning her shame shield, of her father. She just wrote the word dad on it, and how he's been very triggering to her, and how she thinks of that every day of her life since then. It was such a powerful kind of moment. And that retreat was so awesome. Obviously, we're having another one. And yeah, I just want to hear about what your involvement is going to be in this next one coming up in May of 2026, the Body by Transformation Retreat, and how you're feeling about the last one, and your hopefully excitement for the next one.
Well, absolutely yes to all of that. I was so thankful that, you collaborated with me on my idea to do a mindset retreat in person. And Body by Mindset was so powerful. And I too continue to hear from patients who are there. And I think the next retreat that you have planned is just going to be bigger and better, right? The butterfly effect, Body by Transformation. And I know that you've invited me to speak, and for sure we'll be speaking on emotional eating, since it is such a big part of all of our journeys. And I think we talked about a few other ideas. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big ones, and it is right now, if you're listening, it's around Valentine's Day. So we are going to be having a Valentine's Day special. You're wearing red, you have red lipstick. I'm like, oh, she was on point. She didn't even know what was coming her way. So we are offering a buy one, get one 50% off on February 14th, 2026 only. So we want to make sure that not just patients, prospective patients, past patients, maybe even people who aren't patients will feel comfortable, of course, to come attend, as you say, trademarked community as treatment. But also we want to make sure that your support is there, your friends, family, maybe those who've been on a weight loss journey, maybe those who haven't, someone who's wanting to do better from a personal development standpoint. And so we really want to make sure that that room is filled with many people, and you and your expertise, we really want you to give an additional session on that family and friend support system. So yeah, talk a little bit about what the kind of learnings they could get from that sort of a session as well.
Yeah, so I love that you're doing the buy one, get one half off, because what we've learned is the people in our patients' lives are so important to their entire journey. Pre, post, that is, support team is so important. And I am so passionate about teaching a session, if you will, on family and friend support, where you and your support person gets to come. Like a lot of the support groups, it's appropriately so patient only because of
Yeah.
confidentiality. But at this retreat, what if we did a family and friend support session where I could educate your family and friends on the disease of obesity and what are the best ways to support our patients, what gets in the way, what are the obstacles. I've shared this material in person and I've done it virtually, and it's often very, very powerful, not only for the patient, but for the support people. So I think that will be something that makes this next retreat unique.
Yes, we're very excited about that. I think it's gonna, because we get this all the time, it's like, well, my spouse, my husband, my mom, my friend, whoever it might be, like, has such an opinion about this. And so usually it's negative. And a lot of times it's for these people that have not yet had surgery. And it really holds them back. And it's not because that person is mean or, doesn't want to support them, but they don't understand, or they're not, they're just not educated, or they're not informed on those types of things. Or a lot of times too, I feel like it's people who one partner struggles with obesity and the other one doesn't. And so it's like they just can't understand. They're just like, well, just try the diet one more time kind of thing. And it's like, I've tried it 60 times. Like, what more do you want me to do? So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be an awesome, opportunity. Um, or, bring your girlfriend, just your besties, like it's a Valentine's Day
Yeah.
celebration too.
Yeah, because I think even all of our other speakers and the content is relevant to everybody.
Absolutely.
That one session on family and friend support. And um, yeah, I'm excited. I've heard patients say in the past after I've done it, like, I told my support person that a million times and they like never heard me until they heard you say it. They heard it from an expert. And I'm like, okay, well, it's all right.
Sounds about
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, hopefully, yeah, I think that there's a little something for everybody at this retreat. And we're going to start again to slowly announce some of the exciting agenda items. So you're one of the biggest ones. You're a headliner on this thing, and people are coming. Like we said, they love the last one, and I can't wait to see what you bring value that you bring to this one too.
Yes.
Great.
Awesome. So you can find Lora on Instagram at bariatric.therapist or loragrabow.com. And then, of course, in Project Reset through Body by Bariatric. She's there every Monday night doing the group sessions. So we hope that if you're already part of that, you are joining those group. If you're interested in learning more about that, send us a text, connect with us on social media. We'll get you that information on joining that. It's been a really awesome program, and I know people have really gotten a lot out of Project Reset.
Yes.
And then join us at the Body by Transformation Retreat, May 1st and 2nd in Orlando, Florida. All of the information about any of this stuff, go on bodybybariatrics.com, play around on the website. You will find everything that you're looking for and probably more. But we would love to connect with you.
Very much so. Well, Lora, seriously, thank you again. Every time I hear you, I mean this. I learned something new. My favorite one now was overly positive fortune telling. That is my wow. Jeez, I feel a little targeted there, but that's okay. I love
You're
it.
seen. We see you.
Seen, that's right. Seen, I'm validated. I've heard. Yeah, very much so. Your observations always nail it.
We all have stinking thinking, all of us. Hello.
And on that note, I hope you all have an amazing week, and we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.